what is this hype around AI and semiconductors, and are we ever anywhere near the peak of it?
The AI term is being hyped up a little too much and becomes numb when you hear an AI company.
Do you think Taiwan needs to shift that and change from manufacturing that hardware to more software?
This is the turning point where you have the negotiation power to leverage that and build the next generation of profit center.
Hello and welcome to Connected. I'm Divya Gopalan. We are at InnoVEX. It's the startup complement to COMPUTEX, which is one of the world's largest technology trade shows. Here we get a glimpse of the future of technology, from green tech to smart mobility. But make no mistake, the spotlight is squarely on semiconductors and artificial intelligence. Nearly 2,000 tech companies, including some 400 startups, are gathered here in Taiwan, the home of the world's most advanced chips, to show and see the latest AI applications. We're speaking with two leading participants at InnoVEX for a closer look at the speed, scale, and challenges ahead in the AI revolution.
My name is Raymond Chik, co-founder of Untether AI.
Raymond Chik is the co-founder and board chair of Untether AI, a semiconductor startup based in Ontario, Canada. Over the past 15 years, he has founded 4 semiconductor startups and invested in several more. Untether AI was also named among the top 100 most promising artificial intelligence startups in 2022. Raymond, great to have you on the program. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask you this first. Why is it called Untether AI?
Right. When we started the company, that was about 6 or 7 years ago, depending on when you counted it. The idea was to create a new generation of AI chips that can run AI workloads very, very efficiently. So power savings, low energy consumption, such that you actually can run a lot of the AI software and algorithms on handheld devices, like your phone, and perhaps in cars, where you don't really need to ship the data back to a data center to do the thinking and processing, and then ship it back to your device and interact with you, and hence untethered from the cloud or untethered from the server. So the low energy architecture that we have allowed that to happen.
That's definitely something I want to talk about a little bit more as we get into this conversation. But I want to start off with just a general picture. What is this hype around AI and semiconductors, and are we ever anywhere near the peak of it?
Depends on how you think about it. The way I think about it is a bit of a hype in terms of using the term AI. It's every single company that first of all, I'm an angel investor too, so I see a lot of different startups. Every company calls themselves an AI company. And I feel that the AI term, usage of the AI term is being hyped up a little too much and becomes numb. When you hear an AI company, oh, that's one of those AI companies. However, if you think through that, think past that, I mean, AI, from a technology advancement point of view, I think we're still at the starting stage. So the hype is going to go up, the usage of the term AI, everybody can call themselves AI, but then not every company will be successful because they may not be, they may be just using the term AI, just used a very tiny portion of AI and call themselves AI, and then those companies might not survive. And then you see a dip a little, but then you're going to see a consistent rise. I see in the next 10, 15, 20 years, we are going up if we go through that hype.
All right, so, if we go down to product level, most consumers are buying products that are running on chips. They have software with AI. Can you tell us more about how these two are so intricately linked, the AI and chips?
I would say about over the past 10 years, we are seeing a constant or rapid uprising of AI, in particular over the last 2 years with OpenAI's ChatGPT and large language model. And the reason, actually the one big reason behind the rise of AI over the past 10 years was because of semiconductor. if you imagine like 30, 40 years ago, AI, the basic science of AI, behind science is data science, a lot of math. And scientists would think about if you can do this math, then you can create that AI with a lot of math behind it. But there is no powerful enough computer to run those math in a reasonable amount of time. About 10 years ago, people started to realize that, oh, there's this GPU thing. And that's different than a CPU. A GPU was designed to be inherently highly parallel because it was designed to do video processing with a lot of pixels on your screen, and many, many pixels. They do operations on them all at the same time, whereas a CPU inherently doesn't do that. If you run these kind of a workload on CPU, everything has to run sequentially. So that's become slow and inefficient. But that's only particularly for this type of workload that requires parallelism. And it just so happens that all these AI neural networks can take huge advantage of this type of parallelism of the chip architecture. And that basically sparked off the the past 10 years of rapid uprising of AI models, vision processing, and leading to lately the large language models.
Nvidia is about the hottest name right now. Jensen Huang was like a rock star at this event. Now, aside from the stock price, what's the pull here?
As I said, the semiconductor chip, compute semiconductors specifically, allow the rapid development of AI, and Nvidia actually had at least still now, but at least 10 years ago or so, that's really much the only option that people have to run their AI workloads on, much more efficiently than a traditional CPU architecture. CPU is still very good. We've been using CPU, the x86 Intels and AMDs for 50, 60 years. They're good for very general purpose applications, but for specific types of applications like graphics, and in particular also AI, it's very well suited. And basically there's no other solution. The best solution out there is the GPU so far for the past 10 years. And then, so Nvidia basically caught that wave, and they year after year, they churn out better and better and higher performance, better energy solutions to capture the whole AI developers and users.
Now that AI has gotten to evolve to a certain level, there's a lot of discussion about sustainability, even here at this event. And that is something I believe you've been focusing on, and you've talked about Untether also looking at the issue of energy. Can you explain a little bit more? And is it possible to be sustainable, to continue its growth?
Sure. When I talk about sustainability now, I think I'm more referring to the environmental side of sustainability, energy consumption. As you may have heard, these GPUs running GPT models, large language models, they are huge models, requires a lot of energy to train them. And people are nowadays building humongous data centers, and people are building data centers for running AI workloads, even next to nuclear power plants. So energy and electricity is becoming a critical component for running these modern AI systems. And the problem is, with the rapid development of AI and people keep buying GPUs to run these workloads and train and whatnot, it is projected by some study that there is not going to be enough energy or electricity production to keep up with that requirement for power, electricity, and energy. So how do we, beyond the GPU architecture, what can newer architecture provide in terms of lower energy consumption? Because now we know that a lot of people know that AI is here to stay. So this is a workload that it's worthwhile to design a specific hardware infrastructure architecture to make these AI workloads run much more efficiently, energy efficiently. So thereby reducing the use of electricity.
You mentioned that you are going to be talking about sustainability at this event. You have been here a few times now, particularly before the pandemic, I believe. This time, what is it that you're looking for in terms of collaboration, or what are you looking out for?
Well, before the pandemic, I came to Taipei every year 3 or 4 times for business reasons, mostly for having meetings with vendors, supply chain partners, and customers, so it's more business oriented. But now, recent years, I've been more involved with angel investing and startup ecosystem community work. So I like to come over here I'm actually coming over here with a different mindset now, not only for business, but also trying to get a feel of the technical startup ecosystem, especially hard tech. And what is up here, and in this InnoVEX, I wanted to see what type of startups are here. And what can we collaborate between Canada and Taiwan. I also belong to a accelerator in Canada called Venture Lab. So from that, if I'm wearing that hat, I like to get in touch with the local startup ecosystem. That's kind of my purpose here too.
I noticed that you do mention energy quite a bit, and,
Yes.
and that being one of the biggest factors in advances and managing that energy use. How much of an issue is that going to be?
Well, I think in my talk, I actually have a graph that actually, from one of the talks from AMD a couple of years ago. It shows by the end of the decade, if we don't do anything about the energy consumption of these AI workloads, we're going to be the advancement of AI is going to be stalled because the worldwide energy production just capped out. You just have no more electricity energy generated fast enough for the advancement of AI. So basically, it stifled the development of AI if we don't solve that problem.
And it is an issue for the semiconductor industry too, this massive energy use. We've seen the influence of Nvidia, of TSMC, of course, which Taiwan is home to. What do you think is going to drive the future development of semiconductors?
Obviously AI, because everybody, well, not everybody, a lot of people are now looking at how do we generate more efficient compute chips, infrastructures and servers to support the future explosion of AI workload. That's one obvious thing, but there are many other things like automotive. Your EVs now have thousands of chips in them, and there are different class of chips that people need to develop. Specifically, I would give an example of power management chips. Not quite the very high power performance compute engines like Nvidia's and Intel's are doing, but there are a whole sector of power electronics, because you have to charge your electric vehicle from 400 volt, 800 volt, down to your 1 volt or 2 volt chips that's sitting in your car. So that whole power management chain are a different area of semiconductor advancement that needs to be happening in order to support that kind of a business in that industry.
From what I get from you is that the future is exciting, but it needs to be sustainable, especially when it comes to energy. Raymond Chik, Board Chair of Untether AI, it's been a pleasure to have you on the program. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Just a year ago, right here at this event, AI was mostly a novelty, exciting yet exploratory. But now at InnoVEX and COMPUTEX, almost every company either has an AI component or is talking about it. But its evolution won't be possible without the chips that drive it. The advances in semiconductors are having a huge impact across industries and pushing emerging sectors like hard tech into new frontiers. I am now joined by Jerry Yang, General Partner of the Paris-based venture capital firm HCVC. HCVC focuses on hard tech, or what you call a new generation of hardware startups. You manage 2 startup funds totaling more than 110 million euros. Thank you so much for being on the program. I want to start with this. You talk a lot about hard tech. Tell me, what is it that makes it such a strong focus for your portfolio?
Yeah, so I think when we started the firm back in around 2014, about 10 years ago, most of the VC were investing in software companies because it's the kind of the wisdom back then says how software was eating the world. And so I think most of the VC firm back then they stopped investing in companies like in semiconductors or in computing or in any kind of things that require a lot of capex. So we kind of went contrarian because back then we were seeing a new group of entrepreneurs coming out. So many of them are software backgrounds, so former software engineers like Elon Musk, but then they started a robotics company, they started an e-vehicle company, or they started something that involves a hardware space in it. And the main difference between this generation of hard tech founders compared to the previous generation of hardware founders like myself back in 2004 is that by the time of 2014, 2015, it was very evident that if you can build the entire stack from the hardware over to the software to the cloud plus AI, then you can capture a lot of value. And we decided that if we can go contrarian and focus on this kind of startups, then we can build a VC firm that is entirely different from what most of the people are doing back then. So that's kind of how we start.
Right. You focus mainly on the European and US markets. Why is that?
We do have one portfolio company outside of Europe and US, so it's kind of an exception. They're based in Singapore, that's going pretty well. But by and large, we focus on Europe and US. And the main reason was because we're focusing a lot on the B2B kind of hard tech companies that were selling new generation of technologies, for example, nuclear energy or new types of robotics, where Europe and US usually is the place where you have the most capital stock that clients can afford to try new technology. So if you look at, for example, robotics to be used in the warehouses, it's easy to imagine that in Europe and US, the labor cost is so high, and then so they have more incentives to, also there's a labor shortage that was much worse than in Asia, so there's more incentive to use them. And so in terms of technology adoption for our portfolio companies, Europe and US for the type of companies we invest in are the best playground. In terms of the talent pool, as you know, US, everybody knows that America is a country of entrepreneurs. Europe has gone through a huge change since I arrived in 2012. So that was 2012 was kind of the start of the modern era of the entrepreneurship in Europe. And so Europe has gone through a 10-year change, and also so now it has become kind of an entrepreneur heaven where you have a lot of people come out of school, they want to start companies, who left the company want to start companies. So that's kind of, we were on the right trend at the right time, I would say.
The general sense is usually that Europe, US are more software oriented, Asia is more hardware oriented. It seems to be I guess would be the general feeling. How would you compare that to what you're seeing in Europe and the US?
I wouldn't say I have the perception that Asia is more hardware focused, and in terms of entrepreneurship and startups, it's always been kind of global phenomenon. And I think the 10 years of software kind of innovation was that it makes it easier to, so before AI arrived, it makes it easier for everybody to start a software company. So you see the same phenomenon of software entrepreneurs arising not just from US, but also in Europe, but also in China and in Southeast Asia and in Japan to a lesser degree. So that was kind of global phenomenon. When the whole situation moved into the AI power kind of era, things changed a lot because when you move into AI, there are two limited resources you have to get access to. The first one being the data. Do you have any proprietary data to train your neural network? And the second one being, now we all know that, as you know, at this time in Computex, the biggest topic is AI. So you realize that you're really constrained by computing power, and everybody has to go and try to buy Nvidia or AMD GPUs. And so I think the new era of entrepreneurship kind of marked a sharp turn from, let's say, the previous 10 years where everybody will be starting a software company and you can do it anywhere. You can, in the case of crypto companies, you don't even have to do it from somewhere. You're moving around throughout the year and doing it while you go on your laptop, on your smartphone. But all of a sudden you're grounded again because now you have to find access to GPUs. You have to find a relationship to be able to build data servers and all that. So I think, every industry has cycles. In venture capital, we are now witnessing a very, very real cycle change where we go from the previous decade of everything was about SaaS to now, how can we move forward with AI-powered kind of new technology and new companies.
Since 2017, Jerry, you've been talking about the AI bottleneck.
Yep.
Can you explain what that is, and
Yep.
are we there?
So remember I talked about the software revolution where everybody can start a software company. The premise for that to happen was actually around 2003 and 4. Historically, when you improve the computing power, you use all of them because, for example, back in the 90s, when every time Microsoft updated the operating system, you have to upgrade your computer because if you don't upgrade the computer, it won't be able to run. The software complexity is higher than what hardware can handle. That kind of relationship was broken in about 2003 and 4 because the computing power followed another curve in growth back then, which is the Moore's law. And Moore's law was pretty much, it's not really a natural phenomenon, it's basically a business imperative where you have to grow every 18 months, you can grow twice. And so, which means that at some point it would just break away from the real demand of computing power, at least on the consumer side. And that's what happened in 2003 and 4, when you see computing power outstrip what the software requires. And what that means that gap, and it grows larger and larger. So what it means that gap allows you to write software in a much easier way. And that gap around 2012 and 2013 was closed all of a sudden because modern AI started. And so that was kind of the turning point where, okay, this era of like gap between the computing power and what software really requires is coming to an end, because now if you go to AI, all of a sudden you're constrained by hardware again. And back in 2017, my prediction was that first, it's constrained by hardware. Second, my prediction was it's not gonna get better. So I don't have any crystal ball to see the future. I didn't know that a few years later, OpenAI will become so popular. This time it's the reverse. It's the requirement of the neural network is going to outstrip what hardware can provide. And that's what happened since then. And the really big turning point is the ChatGPT when it became super popular among consumers. That version of ChatGPT was GPT 3.5. GPT 3.5, it's very clear that this doesn't make sense at all. You make it work, but the cost is very, very high. And it has only gotten much worse since then because when GPT-4 was announced, they did not disclose the parameter counts, but everybody estimated it's probably somewhere around 1 tera to 2 terabyte of 2 tera of like parameters, which means that it's like 1 terabyte to 1.5 terabyte of like parameter data. And since then, nobody discloses those numbers anymore because it's just got much worse and worse. And that reflects on the share prices of Nvidia. So I think to summarize this, we can pretty much simplify into like two eras. The first era was the software kind of like golden era where computing power, you don't have to worry about that. It's just gonna be there. You just have to find what consumers need. You just have to find what users need, and try to overcome this typical thing like the product market fit, the kind of how do you build retention and all that. In the AI era, it was kind of reverse because now you're constrained by hardware and the models keep growing larger and larger. How does that make sense? Is that ever gonna make sense? Who is going to pay for that? And all those questions are the most important question to answer now when we do a venture capital investment.
Right, speaking of constrained by hardware, you've said in general terms, Taiwan is trapped in its OEM success. That's manufacturing a wide range of tech products. What they basically do is they manufacture those products and then they're sold by other companies. Do you think Taiwan needs to shift that and change from manufacturing that hardware to more software?
So I think the previous generation of like Taiwan, companies in Taiwan, it was very clear that it's kind of separated. What I mentioned, right? The previous generation where if you're doing hardware, you're doing hardware. You might have software engineers, but those are not what you create value for. And Taiwan is kind of trapped in that situation for a long time. And during the 10 years of software boom, it was generally perceived that Taiwan missed an opportunity. And there was a lot of discussion that you should be shifting focus because the hardware is a low margin business and this and that. And what's interesting and what's very, very, I would say, unimaginable was that within a few years of AI development, we're back in the situation where you see that, I think it's been a while since so many top CEO came to COMPUTEX. And this is a sign, right? Because all of a sudden, Taiwan finds itself in the center of the discussion again, just because everybody is now backing Nvidia to sell them GPUs, and Nvidia is relying on TSMC to manufacture their chips, and then many of them more or less rely on Quanta, rely on Wistron, rely on a few companies to build the powerful server for them. I think it's one in a lifetime opportunity. And for me, what's important is that Taiwan can no longer be someone who just supply part of the value chain. It's always a mandate that you have to grab as much value as possible from the whole value. The value chain means that if someone is paying up a certain amount of money at the end, who divide it and get which pieces of the whole thing. This is the turning point where you have the negotiation power to leverage that and build the next generation of profit center that would be more relevant, that would not put yourself in a situation where you just have to listen to your client and do whatever they want. I think that's a good opportunity. And after more than a decade of being seen as just an island that produces hardware, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Yeah.
That's great. Jerry Yang, thank you very much for being on the program today.
Thank you.
Like our guests on the show, some of the world's key players in the tech industry have made an appearance at this event. It is clear that Taiwan plays an essential role in modern industrial transformation with its innovation and chip advances that fuel AI's evolution. And this is a conversation we will continue to have at Connected. It has been good to have your company. Thank you for joining us. If you've enjoyed this episode or wish to add to the dialogue, do join the conversation on our social media. And remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and stay connected.